Hello, everybody. I would have been here sooner, but I had to cook for my kid and, of course, warm up some food for the kittens for their last meal. And I do want to watch a couple episodes if we have the time. I'm going to start with Danny Sheehan. He was on Saucers and Saints, I believe it was a day or two ago. And he discusses what aliens want, who they answer to, and disclosure. So apparently he's going to talk about what we've been told as far as who God is, or what they say God is, which is a really interesting topic. And then, of course, I'd like to also share, if possible, if time permits, and if I can stay awake. I am drinking coffee tonight, so hopefully I'll stay awake. But I'm going to try to share some Professor Jiang explains. I believe that's how you say it. If not, no disrespect to him, but I love his work. He's a professor in China. He teaches special studies, geopolitics, and religion to, I believe it's high school students, but he has some really good stuff, and he's been featured on other podcasts. So I think that his work is really significant right now, really important to all of these topics that we're discussing on social media. Let's get started.
And the being there told them, said, I'm part of like a cadre of individual beings from different star systems who are tasked with coming to see different planets in our galaxy where life has begun, to sort of monitor them, to see how they're doing and how they're evolving. And the follow-up question was, well, wait a second, if you've been tasked to do this, like, who is it that tasks you to do it? And he said, well, you people would probably think about it as God, but it's very, very different than you think it is. That's what he said.
That can't be aircraft. There actually is a large unidentified object circling the Earth at incredible speed.
Estás intentando vender libros en Amazon.
Actually, we are very curious to know where it is you come from.
Daniel Sheehan, welcome to the show.
Terrific. Thanks, James. It's great to be here.
Thanks. So for context, I always say on the show, context matters. A lot of people that have recently joined the fray on the UFO disclosure, mainstream media news feed have seen Danny pop up, and I've heard him referred to as the UFO lawyer, right? But what people need to know is Danny's got a pretty heavyweight career in litigation outside of the UFO world, starting with the Iran-Contra being a key aspect of that, the Pentagon Papers litigation, some Watergate, and the Karen Silks, which was made into a major motion picture, I think, in 1983 with Meryl Streep.
Right.
I think one Academy Award. Great movie, by the way. What's the case is based off of.
Yeah.
So what's a nice attorney like you? How do they get involved in the middle of the disclosure world?
Well, because for the same reason I got involved in all those other ones. People used to say, what are you, crazy? Thinking that you can, get all 47 volumes of the top secret classified information about the Vietnam War published, actually, by the New York Times? Are you nuts? Do you think you can actually stop the construction of private nuclear power plants in the United States? You must be crazy. You think you're going to take on the Iran-Contra thing, that, smuggling weapons down to the Contras in complete violation of the orders of Congress? You think anybody's going to allow you to get anywhere on those things? that, and so I've been. This is one of the major issues, perhaps the major issue that I've known about now for over 50 years. I mean, I've known that the United States government, the executive branch, has an element deep within it, this legacy UFO legacy group, that's been actively concealing the reality of the UFO phenomenon, has been lying to Congress, has been suppressing the information about it to the point of, ruining the careers, military careers and intelligence careers of dozens of people whom they were afraid were going to tell someone about this. They've done extraordinarily dangerous and criminal things to conceal this information. And so I, as a civil rights lawyer and co-founder of the Harvard Civil Rights Law Review, have had this on my agenda for some time to try to get to the bottom of this and to get the constitutional system of our government effectively working to exercise oversight authority by the Congress of this kind of rogue and renegade operation that is, being coordinated in part by the Central Intelligence Agency.
Yeah.
The Science and Technology Division and the Covert Operations Division, or the Operations Directorate, they call it, of the CIA. In promulgating a massive psychological ops operation against the American public, trying to convince anybody and everybody that if in fact someone believes that UFOs are real, they must be mentally ill. I mean, very specifically, we know that is the PSYOPs operation that was going on, absolutely, totally unconstitutional. The covert operations people of the CIA attempting to basically brainwash the American public into allowing them to conceal the reality of an entire extraterrestrial civilization all around us. That they're trying to do is capture the UFO craft so that they can reverse engineer it and make a weapons delivery system for nuclear weapons. So I've known about this for a long time, and that's how I've been involved in this for over 50 years while I was doing all of the other stuff.
So in parallel, and many times you worked on these other things in parallel with the disclosure. So let me ask you this. What was your first, when you're an attorney and you've got to start getting information, where was your first line of sight, your first focus, your first target to get into?
My first target was going after the classified portions of Project Blue Book.
Okay.
I mean, I knew that Project Blue Book had been conducted by the United States Air Force between 1952 and 1969, and I knew that they were lying, indicating that they were never able to really verify anything about UFOs. It was all swamp gas or, mistaken flocks of birds or something.
Okay.
I knew perfectly well that they were lying, and so that the first thing I did is I went after the classified portions of Project Blue Book, and got access to them and actually saw photographs, official UFO government above top secret classified photos of UFO recovery program activities. Wow. So I saw what the UFO looked like. I saw the U.S. Air Force personnel, all around it, taking photographs and trying to recover it. So I've known this. That was in 1977.
Wow. Now, some of the craft that you saw, was it Roswell? Was it the Kingman crash, or was it?
No, it was winter time, so it clearly wasn't Roswell, which happened in July of 1947. This was the first one was a snow-covered field, with a UFO had hit and plowed this huge trench right through the middle of the field. It kicked up all the dirt and soil onto the snow. It was lodged in a bank, obviously an earthen bank that was covered with snow. It was sticking up at a 45-degree angle, and I could actually, read and trace the symbols that were on the base of the dome. It was on the UFO. So, and I brought this back to Jesuit headquarters and was shown another photograph another photograph that was at Jesuit headquarters of an in-flight UFO that had been taken by a cargo pilot in the Northwest, and he provided it to the chief air traffic controller of the Seattle airport because the pilot didn't want to lose his license and get in trouble. But he brought it to his best friend, who was the head of the air traffic controllers, and he didn't want to get in trouble, so he took it and gave it to his wife, Dodie. And she gave it to the fellow who was at the Jesuit National Headquarters. Her husband said, "Here, take this and give it to your brother. He's a priest." That's how I got it, because I was a candidate for the Jesuit priesthood, and I was their general counsel at the Jesuit headquarters in their social ministry offices. So they showed it to me.
Yeah.
So I've seen them from both directions, both from the Catholic Church files and from the official files of the United States government. So I've known that this was true since 1977.
Yeah, and with the Jesuits, it's always so interesting. With the Jesuits and with the Vatican, were you able to get any information from the Vatican sources?
No, I tried. I contacted the National Archives back in 1977. To try to see if we could get access to the archives out of the Jesuit headquarters to share some of this with President Carter,
Yep.
who had asked that this investigation be conducted. And I've met with Johann X, who's the head of the archives. I've been to Rome and met with him in person. I've talked about this with some of the hierarchy at the Vatican, trying to get access to this, and they keep just saying, "Not yet, not yet." But in 2009, on November 10th of 2009, the Vatican actually issued an official statement about this, authorized, in fact, directed by Pope Benedict, of all people, who had been the head of the doctrine of the faith. The guardian of the orthodoxy of the Catholic doctrines, and he directed the director, the Jesuit priest, who was the director of the Papal Observatory, Jose Gabriel Funes, to go to the press office of the Vatican and issue the public statement stating that now that we are discovering more and more of these new exoplanets, obviously because of the launching and orbiting of these new spaceborne telescopes, such as the Hubble and the James Webb, etc. Said now that we're discovering more and more of these new exoplanets, it has now become clear that much sooner than had been previously anticipated, our human family is going to be discovering life elsewhere in the universe. Therefore, the time has arrived for the beginning of an extremely important conversation about the profound philosophical and theological questions that will be posed to our human family by the discovery of life elsewhere in the universe. And so, waving my school tie at them as from Jesuit headquarters, I contacted Jose Gabriel Funes and flew to see him, sat down in a face-to-face meeting with him, and he said to me, right within the first 2 minutes of our conversation, he said, "Look, Dan," said, when we're talking about the discovery of life elsewhere in the universe, we're not talking about merely the discovery of some single-cell life form beneath some frozen sea, on some distant moon orbiting a planet around some distant star in a far-off galaxy. We're talking about another highly intelligent and highly technologically developed, but distinctly non-human species right here in our Milky Way galaxy. And so I've viewed myself as being responding to a call that has actually been issued by the official Roman Catholic Church, to gather citizens together and have this discussion about the profound philosophical and theological questions that are posed to us by the discovery of life elsewhere. And it is uncovered the reality of the fact that our United States government, an element within it, is actually in possession of non-human extraterrestrial spacecraft and the bodies of the pilots, and that they've had face-to-face direct communication with extraterrestrial beings and debriefed them. I've spoken to people in the Project Blue Book who have been present face to face with the live ET beings who were being interviewed voluntarily. over at S4. So I know that this stuff is true. And when you know something like that, it's just not only completely irresponsible for a person not to do whatever it is they can to make this information public, but if you have special training in the law, you have an obligation to try to get the constitutional structures of our government to respond pursuant to their obligations under the Constitution, and to share this information with the people who, in a democracy, have to be involved in making decisions about what our relationship is going to be with this civilization, to stop the national security state people who are trying to hijack the government, basically, from trying to transform their knowledge about this reality into a weapon system to be able to both confront the extraterrestrial civilization, but also to continue to try to just establish full military spectrum dominance here on our planet. That this is a moral and constitutional and legal obligation that I have as a practicing attorney to do this.
No, that's, you said when someone's specially trained and you're the guy, right? You're the guy legally. I don't think they could have built anybody with the prototype of your background that would fit better with everything involved around your career going into the subject to dig in. So we covered Blue Book as kind of where you started, right? To look into that. And we kind of pivoted over to, interfacing with the Vatican.